Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another one-man review. Today I have Market Day by James Sturm. This is from Drawn and Quarterly. I picked it up in a recent trip to Second and Charles. It's got really nice design on it, really good art all the way throughout. This is really nice with like this canvas weave here on the cover with embossed like gold on the title. I really like all of that. I've heard James Sturm's name before. I don't know that I've read anything by him, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye out. Really good writer, really good coloring and cartooning all the way throughout. This book is also like a touching story, and in my kind of ongoing struggles with how much emotional content someone can really deliver in a short form versus like the longer manga works that we've been looking at, and me struggling like knowing I'll never be able to do something that's 3,000 pages long. This gives me comfort that if done right, you can land in a pretty good emotional punch in a fairly quick read with not a small amount of work, but not definitely not manga sized work. So the story is simple. The main character is a rug maker in a Jewish community, and his wife is pregnant. So he starts out wondering about like the ethics of bringing someone into the world, which is, for me something that lands. It's a question that I've always struggled with. Life isn't just. A lot of people treat life as if it's a given moral good, like creating a life, but I've always kind of felt the opposite. Like there's an immorality to bringing life into the world without having someone's permission, and he seems to struggle with that a little bit, the morality of committing someone to life. But more importantly, the book is about him as an artist, and I think that this story is probably autobiographical in a certain sense. I don't know that James Sturm had a kid or anything like that, but this is definitely about the struggles of being an artist and committed to your art and seeing the world through the lens of your art. So as a rug maker, this man is always thinking, oh, well, this is really beautiful, like how the dawn is breaking, and how would I represent that in the weft and weave of a rug? And, you can kind of see that in the background sometimes. And I really think that's a nice, effective visual for those kinds of things. So this is really all takes place in one day, where this character goes to the market to sell his rugs, and then finds out the person that he normally sells them to is no longer in business. And so it really causes like, a collapse of what he's been doing all this time as someone who's really, really committed to his craft. And within that, I can see Sturm must be struggling with his commitment to his craft as well, because this is the story of an artist struggling. You can see the cartooning throughout. It's all like the thing that comes to mind to me is Adrian Tomine, and then there's some almost like Mike Mignola-esque moments in terms of composition and maybe just the use of color. But I think Adrian Tomine and Drawn and Quarterly Fantagraphics kind of cartooning at its best. That's what this book is. This is my favorite visual scene in the book, where again he's seen everything as an artist, and like this is kind of what it's like for those of you who watch that aren't artists. I'm assuming most of our viewers are, but for people that see this that aren't, there's this weird thing where you're constantly assessing the world in different ways. And so he's looking at this crowd and thinking, how would this come together as a single rug? And this is his mind cycling through these different options. How abstract am I going to go, or which elements are most important, and how I'm going to abstract? What's the process like of getting from here to this abstraction, and then some other variation on the form there, as he comes back to reality and is seeing this right here rather than the thing in front of him. I found that to be a really powerful visual sequence. And then, the story just goes from there about what is the crisis that this guy's put into when he finds that the person he typically sells his artistic wares to, the person who's built him up, isn't buying anymore. What do you do when you lose your market? And he has to make a choice. And it's like the struggle over that's pretty brutal. At one point, he's kind of imagining to himself like, wow, if my kid's just not born, or like my wife and the kid die in childbirth, or like the kid dies and she's she's like so distressed that she dies, man, like life would be so much easier. I could just go on to, continue doing my art. And like that's brutal, and that's what I'm saying. Like when done right and well written, like you can land a really powerful emotional content in a short amount of space, and that's gives me hope that maybe I can pull that off in my next project or two that I have in mind. And he's talking about, like his delusions of grandeur, and he's feeling shame and pity and anger. Here he is kind of thinking about, like, oh, if my wife died, maybe I could bang the merchant's daughter, and just all these awful thoughts that seem really like they must have come from some real experience to me. And then in the end, he says, well, I'm selling my loom. I pledge, and he has to choose, choose between two nations, he calls it, his art or his family. He says, I will pledge my allegiance, do as is required, and I pray I do not turn a traitor. And I thought, God damn, that's like a really powerful, sorry for the spoiler, but like that's to me the kind of good writing that it knows is necessary to pull off something short like this. So really enjoyed this book, really respect it. I'm sure it's been out for a long time. I picked it up at Second and Charles, but if you've never got a copy of this, go out and get it for sure. I would highly recommend it. Yeah, it came out in 2010. Once you've got a copy of that, if you haven't already, make sure that you go pick up The Strange Death of Alex Raymond by myself and Dave Sim. This is a book about what happens when someone commits themselves to art over everything else, I think. That's one of the core topics for me in this book. And then also my own struggle with how much should I devote myself to the art versus how much should I devote myself to the family and living a life for the people around me, to the dogs and my partner. So I this kind of shows why I think like a book like this really has so much impact on me. So definitely go get this book, Strange Death of Alex Raymond, and then keep an eye out for the rest of the books that Sean has coming from Living the Line, Yokoyama Yuichi's Plaza, Eric Creek's The Exile, and Neil Van de Peet's Centralia. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.